Okay, we're dealing with battlegrounds today. The battlegrounds we're dealing with are Arizona and Ohio, also Florida. Got Steve Stern down in Florida. Got a lot going on. I want to start in Arizona. Tony Fabrizio put out a poll for one of the PACs out there, shows Blake Masters for the first time leading. I think it was Dreyer in the team over the Washington Times broke this story this morning. Blake Masters is now leading at 16%. With Brnovich at 14 and Jim Lehman kind of surprised up at 14%. So we've asked Blake Masters to come in. Blake, first off, I just want to make sure everybody knows, this is your PAC, although it's Tony Fabrizio, who's one of the top pollsters. He and McLaughlin are the two top pollsters for the president. He's got a reputation of being pretty accurate. He also knows how to poll MAGA. So walk us through this poll. This is the first time I believe that you've been ahead of Brnovich the entire time.
That's right. Yeah, and there are other polls that show me similarly situated, 15, 16 points. And, Brnovich, we've seen poll after poll, he's just losing support. He started the race at 38, and then it was 28. His own pollster puts him at 22, and now this Tony Fabrizio poll has him just bleeding support down to 14. But that tracks what I'm seeing on the ground, Steve. Like, I've never seen Brnovich at a campaign event. He doesn't campaign. He just thinks he's above it all. He didn't show up to the debate that me and the other candidates had that I think I handily won back in February. He just doesn't campaign, and he's not doing anything about the election investigation. He's not doing anything about the audit. So I'm actually not surprised to see him losing so much support.
One of the surprising, correct me if I'm wrong, we'll do the math. You're at 16, Lehman's at 14, Brnovich is at 14, then there's a drop off to General McGuire at 5, and the other guy, I think Olson at 1. So essentially 50% still undecided. I know we got a ways to go. The primaries, I think, in August. We've got a ways to go, but isn't that a pretty high undecided? Is that because people don't know who you guys are? Or, I mean, most people know Brnovich. I would think the concern that his campaign would have is, since he's such a well-known commodity, to be at 14% this late into the primary season, although you guys have a ways to go, is got to be pretty shocking to him, correct?
Well, that's right. Yeah, I think Brnovich he's in the 80% in terms of name ID. Me, Jim Lehman, we're still in the 60%. So I got to get a lot more people to know who I am. Brnovich has a ceiling. I think Jim Lehman has a pretty serious ceiling. I don't think he's that compelling of a candidate. But Steve, what my data shows us is that when people learn about me, when they hear my message, as long as they know about me and Brnovich and Lehman, they choose me by kind of an overwhelming majority. So if I can marshal the resources and get my name and message out there, I will win this primary in August.
So walk us through that. What is the message? What's on the I keep telling people, Arizona is the railhead for the Trump movement. These are patriots. You've gone through this brutal, full forensic audit. They still don't have a decertification. There's a big dogfight in that in the House and the Senate. You've had the precinct strategy. The reason we got Stern on here today, Dan Schultz put out the precinct strategy. Trump comes out and endorses it 4 days later. Emergency legislation. The first time, emergency legislation, got to change it to get rid of it. The establishment out there obviously hates the Trump movement. So what's your pitch that you're saying is so compelling to the voters out there in Arizona?
I mean, it is the Trump 2016 agenda, but I am by far the best messenger for that agenda here in Arizona. Take the border, for instance. All my competition, they're going to agree with me that we need to close the border, but they stop there. They just traffic in bullet points. I actually talk to people about what's gone wrong, not just in the last year, but in the last 20 or 30 years, right? I'm out there leading on this idea that the Democrats want to import millions of people, not just to change our culture, but to shore up a new electoral majority, right? This is all about winning a Democrat electorate. And I'm the only one talking like that. We all talk about fixing the schools. Well, I'm the only candidate willing to say that critical race theory is anti-white racism. I'm willing to explain what the left is doing to our culture, how they're indoctrinating our kids. And because I go deeper than just the traditional bullet points, I think people are like, finally, here's a Republican who knows what time it is, who's going to pick up that MAGA torch and lead us to victory.
Talk to me about the situation in Ukraine. You've got a lot of Republican senators out there, I think with pom-poms on, trying to instigate or get us into even more of this conflict than is smart and savvy, particularly given that the Chinese Communist Party is winning here, obviously backing Russia, both financially, and I say they're backing them with weapons, right? That'll be shown to be, they're backing them up with logistics, if nothing else. Where are you coming out on this current conflict, and how to avoid having this metastasize to actually a third world kinetic war?
Well, some of the rhetoric here is absolutely irresponsible. You've got even Republicans and sort of pro-war Democrats calling for no-fly zones. But I explained to my voters here why a no-fly zone is tantamount to declaring World War III, right? It means you have to shoot down Russian planes. It means you shoot down or you blow up Russian anti-aircraft batteries. And Russia's going to respond to that. Maybe they send missiles into Poland and Lithuania, and then those countries trigger Article 5 of the NATO treaty. All of a sudden, NATO's at war with Russia. Russia uses a tactical nuke against NATO. Well, we have to reply. Nuclear deterrence theory says when you get hit with nukes, you've got to reply, and all of a sudden we have a nuclear war, right? And so the question is, how can we sympathize with the Ukrainians? How can we end this bloody mess? I think the invasion was bad. I'm happy to call Putin a thug and a murderer, but we got to look for ways to de-escalate, right? Sanctions and supporting the Ukrainians, that's supposed to give us a way to help de-escalate. We need a ceasefire, and we need to make sure that we don't get mired in World War III here.
People are still, burning hot mad about the election out in Arizona decertification. Where do we say Brnovich is the linchpin for this? Obviously, he's taken a pass. The thing's hung up in the House and the Senate. Where does it stand, and what can you do as a Senate candidate, or once you're in the U.S. Senate, to actually get some movement here?
Well, as a candidate, it's very frustrating. Like, I'm not the Attorney General. If I was the Attorney General, I promise I would be briefing people on the status of my investigation. My investigation would probably be wrapped up by now. Brnovich isn't doing anything. I don't think he's going to do anything. I made a website, www.where'sbrnovich.com. It's been like 178 days, Steve, since he got the audit report. He's been investigating, but I think he's clearly not going to do anything. I think he just put out a third document request, begging the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors to actually give him the documents. They won't do it, but Brnovich doesn't actually want to enforce the law. He doesn't want to go slap the handcuffs on people who are ignoring valid subpoenas. So unfortunately, as a candidate, all I can do is point out weak leaders like Brnovich who don't use their power. As a U.S. Senator, I think there's a lot we can do. I want states to be able to run their own elections, but I do think we need a nationwide voter ID law. The Constitution guarantees each state a Republican form of government. So I think the federal government needs to say, hey, states, run your own elections, but you will require every voter to show an ID in order to vote.
I think what's confusing the people is three of you are within margin of error. Lehman, yourself, and Brnovich. Why is it Brnovich has chosen not to debate you? Does he think that he doesn't owe the people in Arizona to come forward and actually lay out, because he's been Attorney General, and I think he's been a terrible Attorney General, quite frankly, except for what he did on the border. But there's no excuse for the election was stolen in Arizona. It's obvious it was stolen in Arizona. Biden's illegitimate. Those electors should have never been certified by him in the first place, right? They should be decertified. But even given that, it's not like people actually know where he stands on war and peace, where he stands on these big issues about the capital markets and the economy and our deficit, and what they did was signing this bill at in the morning at 3 a.m. in the morning, the 2,700 pages. Brnovich is really kind of unknown in that regard. Does he not think he owes the people of Arizona a full and frank, particularly Republican voters, to understand if he was to win and go up against Mark Kelly, what he would actually have to bring to the table?
He literally does not think that voters deserve to know that. He's just playing NFL defense. He thinks he's so far ahead that he can just coast. Steve, I'm serious. I've never seen the man in person. For all I know, he could be a computer avatar that doesn't really exist. I see Jim Lehman. I see Mick McGuire. I see Kerry Lake. I see all the gubernatorial candidates. We're campaigning. We're out there. We're shaking hands, kissing babies, letting people know what we think. But Mark Brnovich is too good. He just hides away. He just goes on Fox News and is campaigning using his Attorney General post to try to campaign for U.S. Senate. I don't think that's going to work out well for him. And it turns out now, according to this recent poll, he's not even in the lead anymore.
Politico's got a story out today about the Hispanic vote and the importance of the Hispanic vote in these two Senate races in Arizona and Nevada. and essentially saying they're fired up and they're starting to spend money early because they basically say Mark Kelly does not have any chance at all of not getting blown out unless there's a massive Hispanic turnout for the Democrats. And they talk about how the headwinds are against them. I mean, Cortez and I went through this morning on the show to say, hey, if they're banking on a big Hispanic turnout, they're in deeper trouble than they think. What is your assessment? Let's say you win the primary, you're taking Kelly on head to head. What do you bring to the table for the Hispanic community in Arizona to make sure that they don't overwhelmingly come out for Mark Kelly? Because if he doesn't get it, I mean, Politico walks through the math and the Democrats walk him through the math. If they don't get an overwhelming turnout of Hispanic voters, that there's no chance these guys win. And I happen to think right now that we're going to get at least 50-50 split of Hispanic voters, working class voters, and middle class that vote for MAGA candidates this year. What are your thoughts, Blake Masters?
Well, unlike the Democrats, I don't take people for granted. You know, I will show up in those communities. Pretty sure I speak better Spanish than Mark Kelly. And we'll show up and we'll talk to people. And it's like, do you like your high gas prices? Do you like the open border? Do you like the crazy toxic left-wing ideology in your kids' schools? And these Latino families, man, they don't want that stuff. You know, this is like the demo that most believes in the American dream. They want safe neighborhoods, safe communities. You know, they just want their kids to learn why this is the best country in the world. And when we go and we talk about how the Democrats in charge have just failed, man, we're going to get so many of those Latino voters. My kids' T-ball league is, you know, primarily Latino. And when I talk to the parents while the kids are practicing, man, we're talking about barbecue and AR-15s. And, you know, the Democrats take these people for granted and they're going to get punished for it in November.
Blake, how do people find out more about you? How do they find out more about your campaign?
Simple. Just go to blakemasters.com. You know, we're racing up against the end quarter fundraising deadline. So if you can toss me 10 or 20 bucks to help me beat Mark Kelly in November, God bless you. I'd really appreciate it. blakemasters.com.
The control of the United States Senate goes right through the great state of Arizona. And right now it's a dogfight out there. Let me just reiterate, Tony Fabrizio, the president's pollster, he and McLaughlin are the two primary pollsters for the president, come out with a poll for a PAC that is supporting Blake Masters, but it's got 16%. Blake Masters, Brnovich at 14%, and Jim Lehman, the businessman, at 14%. So this is now officially a dogfight out there in Arizona. Good luck, Blake Masters.
I'm your guy.
Godspeed.
Thank you, Steve. Godspeed. Thank you.
Thank you, Blake Masters. Okay. Ohio is another dogfight. We had it today in the show in the morning. We had Josh Mandel on. I want to go to Neil McCabe, who's the national political editor for the Star News Network, somebody I've worked with for a long time. Neil, there's a debate tonight in Cleveland, I think it is. It's going to be round two. This explosive debate they had the other night where Josh Mandel and Gibbons got in each other's face. Give us assessment of where the race is right now. You got a big four. You got J.D. Vance. You got Timken. You've got Gibbons. You got Mandel. This is a showtime. These are all very well known, either state chairman or very prominent people in the MAGA movement. You've also got Dolan, who I guess is the wealthy, the son of the entrepreneur that's running, as a never Trumper, as an establishment candidate. But give us your assessment right now of where this race stands.
Yeah, right now, Steve, it is a clash of the titans, like you said. And the expectation was always that President Donald J. Trump would weigh in and just sort of tap someone on the shoulder and make them the appointed one. And the president has decided to sit this one out and make it the cage match that you're describing. Mike Gibbons had virtually no voter ID. He ran unsuccessfully in 2018, and he has spent upwards of $10 million going in the air. He has absolutely carpet bombed the other candidates, and he's put himself in the lead, barely. I talked to Josh Mandel's campaign today. They told me that they still have internal polls showing them ahead, but they recognize that it's really Gibbons and Mandel, and then with Timken and J.D. Vance sort of pulling up the rear.
So how does this play out? Is Gibbons has put $10 million in? I understand he's going to put a lot more money on the head of of Mandel since they had this dust up. But is television spending really the key to this race right now? Is that where you're seeing the breakout? Because I think you've got basically Gibbons at, I think, at the mid 20s, low 20s. You've got Josh Mandel basically 15 to 17. Then you drop down to the high single digits. I think if you aggregate them up, you've got JD and Timken in the 8 or 9 range. And then Dolan, I think, is below that. But of the four kind of people going for the MAGA vote right now, is the differential been TV spending? Is that how Gibbons actually broke this out, and not really grassroots backing?
So for the last 2 or 3 cycles, Steve, TV has been described as basically dumb money. Everything is digital, everything is targeted. But a guy like Gibson, who is, like I said, virtually unknown, he needed to go on the air. You know, he was advertising on football games, and I don't know what kind of ratings the Cleveland Browns get, but he advertised on the Super Bowl, Steve. And so, you know, he needed to get that ID out there. And then he's also come up with a lot of very positive ads, talked about when he played football, talks about his family. And then, as I said, he's absolutely had like a withering attack on Mandel, J.D. Vance, and James Timken.
Where does it stand? And take those four. Let's leave Dolan out. What's the difference in policy? Are any of them advocating any kind of different policy that people either about the war, or is it about taxes? Is there anything they're advocating about China? Who's advocating something that's that difference that you would have this kind of breakdown?
Steve, everybody is just trying to be, who's the Trumpiest of them all. And so the only alternative that they have, their policies are virtually all the same, but they're going through their back catalog. And so in the case of J.D. Vance, he said just absolutely horrific, vicious things about President Trump in 2016, 2015. Those have come back to haunt him. Jane Timken, she said some nasty things around January 6th. And then as sort of, I don't know how to describe it, she went out and got Rob Portman to endorse her. And I don't know, the Emerson poll that came out actually said that the Portman endorsement hurts her, but she's trying. Timken, he said some things in 2018 where he said that he would allow a woman to choose to have an abortion. He didn't want to go in, he didn't want to get involved in it. And so this is pretty much where we stand. Josh Mandel, he is sort of a sentimental favorite. He's, there's great support for him among Washington conservatives. And a lot of people remember they've been following him in Ohio since he was a city councilor. And he was supposed to go up against Jared Brown. And when he didn't go up against Jared Brown, that caused a lot of people to take a pause. But he still remains a sentimental favorite among Ohio Republicans and conservatives.
Well, isn't the issue that when he's run before, he was more of a Koch guy? When he ran the time that he ran for the Senate and lost, he was really a Koch. He was much more of a libertarian and much more of a Koch. And now he obviously backed President Trump early. He's become full MAGA.
It's before the Trump paradigm. I mean, everybody was a Koch guy. Corey Lewandowski worked for Koch. I mean, it's just the way it was back then before Trump.
Let's go to what's going to happen. What's going to happen tonight? Tell us about this debate that's going on.
Yeah, so tonight in Cleveland, and I'm pretty sure this is going to be broadcast or carried statewide. They had a dust up a few days ago in the last debate where Mike Gibbons said that Mandel had never worked a day in his life, and Mandel sort of jumped out of his chair. The guy's a 2-combat tour, a Marine veteran of Iraq. And the two of them got in each other's faces. It was almost like a hockey fight, and they had to be separated by by the moderator. So we're just going to have to see, and people are going to sort of watch. Both of them sort of crossed the line. Gibbons should be going after.
But hold on. But what Gibbons said. Hang on. What Gibbons said is that you don't have any private experience. You've either been a politician, a city council guy, or you've been he didn't say serviceman. He says you have no private sector experience. I mean, wasn't that the quote that Josh came out of a seat on?
Yeah, but the inference was that he had no real life experience, and so he didn't stock soup cans at a supermarket. But I think the guy who spent 2 tours in Iraq, I think he has some sensibilities about the real world that other people don't have, Steve.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree with the service part. I think he was just saying he didn't have private, because remember, he's criticizing him on buying Chinese stocks. He's criticizing him on buying, on making money off China. And he's trying to talk about the complexity of finance. And he says, look, the guy says, you don't know what you're talking about. He says, we don't have private company experience. Today on the show, Josh said, hey, he doesn't know how to dial it down. He's only going to dial it up. How is that playing with the MAGA base in Ohio? Do they want to see a more intense, like a hockey fight, or they want to get back to the basics? Because to me, J.D. Vance looked like the great peacemaker in that one. J.D. Vance kind of said, hey, you got to knock this off. But where do the voters stand about this specific issue?
Yeah, I think what everyone's looking for tonight is round two. And so, the last debate got everybody's attention, and people are basically sort of holding fire to see what happens in the sequel. And so, we'll see. Is somebody going to jump out of their chair again? I mean, it definitely has engaged MAGA. It's engaged Republicans. In a way, it made it a two-man fight. And so for each guy, they have to decide, am I going to dial it up or dial it down? Mandel is like full on. The guy campaigns like a maniac. He's driving all over the state, and he is in it to win it. Gibbons has sort of been laid back, and he's let those TV ads do his campaigning for him. And so this is really the first time we saw Gibbons mix it up at all. We'll see if somebody puts the tap on him and says, hey, hit the brakes, or if he goes full on Irish, Steve.
Okay, Neil, real quickly, how do people follow you on Star News Network? How do they get to you on your social media?
Yeah, Twitter, Getter, Truth Social, @Reporter McCabe, and check out the Star News Network. Everywhere. Just Google it.
Neil McCabe, thank you. Thank you very much. You guys are all over top of these campaigns. This thing in Ohio is really starting to be a heat. You saw earlier today, we had Eric Greitens on. Earlier today, Eric Greitens, a huge fight out there in Missouri. He's been accused of all kinds of things today. Mo Brooks comes out and says, I'm not voting for Mitch McConnell. That gets a whole chain of events going. So Alabama's on fire. Missouri's on fire. Ohio's on fire. Obviously, John Fredericks had Dr. Oz on his show this morning before I came on. Pennsylvania's on fire. Arizona's on fire. Georgia, across the board. These are going to be fascinating campaigns. Want to go to Steve Stern. Steve, you spent the weekend down. You were at that great event that the president was at. I want to get up to date on that. But the first thing, we were trying to get Kelly Ward on here. There's another huge brawl out in Arizona about the whole precinct strategy. You and Schultz worked so hard to get the president to endorse this. Mike Lindell endorses it. You guys are getting endorsements all over the place. 4 days after Stern and Schultz bring in the endorsements, bang, in Arizona, they're shutting it down. You see that the establishment's slow walking this everywhere. Tell me what you guys are going to do about this, because the precinct strategy is absolutely central to 2022, the wins there, and to taking over the Republican Party. Steve Stern.
So thanks for having me on. And a great thing happened about an hour ago. A guy calls me. His name is Gary Lee. Patriots for Better America and why I love him. He's 85. So he's got me beat. So what he wants to do, we got 10,000 trucks going around the Beltway. We're trying to get a hold of Brian Brass, Mike Landis, or Maureen Steele, if they would call us and let us know what's going on. We want them to work and get involved in precinctstrategy.com. So over the weekend, we had this great event. The greatest thing is that there was no press there. So everybody's calling me to find out what's happening. Let's let you know that this was like a 12, 13-hour event. It started at 7:30, where we had breakfast with Sarah Huckabee Sanders. She went into a round table with 25 of us. And how I got involved in this, I have to thank Martha Bonetta Fain. She got me involved with Carla Spalding, who's running against Debbie Wasserman Schultz. We're the Broward kings and queens, and they wanted representative with the president for Broward County. So we started with Huckabee, and she was really good. I asked her naturally, do you know what precinctstrategy.com was? She said she didn't. So I said, do you mind if I get in touch with you to let you know, and would you endorse it? She said, of course. Let me see what it is, and we'll start to do that. Then we got Dan Bongino. Dan Bongino comes in and starts talking, and he asks questions around the thing, and I asked him, hey, do you know what precinctstrategy.com is? No, I do not. I said, well, how can you endorse it if you don't know what it is? He said, well, look, give me a call or go to info at Dan Bongino and let me know what's going on. Then we get Kimberly Guilfoyle coming in, taking pictures with us and getting in a round table. She doesn't know what precinctstrategy.com is. Then we get Donald Trump Jr. comes in. He signs a book. One of the things that we have is our president has a tremendous book here, Our Journey Together. He signs my book, takes a picture, and I said, would you mind me getting in touch with you to see if you can understand what precinctstrategy.com is, since your dad endorsed it? He says, terrific. I want to know what it is. Then we had Candace Owens get together with her, take a picture. I asked you, do you know what precinctstrategy.com is? He did not. So we went through all those people, had a lot of great talk with him. And on top of that, if you see a sign behind me, get involved with a war room thing. We had 17,000 people pass us. I got 4 or 5 people holding up the signs, asking them if they know have they ever seen the war room? Would they like to get involved? And we had a table set up. We got hundreds and hundreds of people to sign up. So we have to thank everybody.
Steve,
yeah, sure.
Steve, hang on for 1 second. We're going to take a short commercial break. We're up against a break. Take a short commercial break. We're going to go back to Florida with the great Steve Stern. We got Boris Epshteyn coming on. A lot to go through. We'll be back in War Room Battleground in just a moment.
War Room Battleground with Stephen K. Bannon.
Okay, welcome back. We got Steve Stern. Steve, this event on Saturday obviously didn't get as much publicity as one of these massive rallies, but it was very intense, huge crowd on a Saturday in Florida. Tell us what's the outcome, particularly about the precinct strategy. What can we hope for? Because in Arizona, they're trying to shut it down. Now it's growing all over the place, and people can go to precinctstrategy.com right now to find out how to become a precinct committeeman. But what was your takeaway from this massive kind of America First Tour rally?
It was super phenomenal. We had tons and tons of people wearing the flag shirts. They coming up to me. They want to take pictures with me. They want my autograph. They want to know how to get in touch with you. They love you for what you're doing. So it capped off about 4:30 when they told us that we were going to meet the president and take a picture with him. And this was the greatest thing that ever happened. I think it was one of the best days of my life. So here's a picture of me and the president. And you noticed we got about 2 minutes to talk to him. And we talked to him about precinctstrategy.com. And I said to him, how are we going to get this out there? He says, I want you to come up to Mar-a-Lago and we're going to talk about it. Then we had a round table where I was the second speaker. And he asked me, he says, Steve Stern, tell me about precinctstrategy.com. I got to tell you one thing. And the president said, if we had precinctstrategy.com on the last election, we would have won the election. Well, when somebody says that is an unbelievable thing. So people have to go to precinctstrategy.com. Wow. Dan Schultz is a mastermind. He has done a phenomenal job on this. And we want people to call us. I cannot tell you how many phone calls I've gotten over the weekend. I got up at 4:30 just to answer emails, spoke to you, emailed you. People want to get a hold of me. They can get a hold of me at theflagshirt.com, at sstern1054 AOL. 954-318-6902. The last time I was on the show, we got 500 calls, got 1,000 people came to our website. Okay. And so President has invited me up to Mar-a-Lago. I got to get a hold of his people. We're going to have action. I would need an hour to tell you everything that went on with that.
Yeah. Real quick, I want everybody, give us the number again and give us the email again of how people get to you.
So I'm also on Getter at Steve Stern. I've never told anybody that. I'm getting tons of people on that. It's theflagshirt.com, sstern1054 AOL, 954-318-6902. Every call will be answered. We got hundreds and hundreds of people calling on how to get involved. So it's happening in Florida. Yeah. We're going to have next Monday, we're going to have 500 people involved in the executive committee.
Okay. I want every state to turn out like this, precinct strategy. And listen, these roundtables, let me tell you what Stern was talking about. When President Trump goes to these events or he goes to the thing, they always have a roundtable afterwards with maybe some big donors or people that are prominent in the community that make things happen. And the president will sit there. It's a way he kind of gets a feel for what's really happening. They'll go around the table. For Donald Trump, and I want you to repeat this, Stern, for Trump to sit there and say, if we had the precinct strategy in 2020, I would have won, so they couldn't have stolen it. They could not have stolen the election. He'd be in Pennsylvania Avenue today. Steve Stern, that is absolutely humongous coming out of it, because President Trump really lets you know what he's thinking in these roundtables. So that is absolutely huge. He knows it, that they would not have been able to steal this. And that's our responsibility. That's why we can't let it happen in 2022 and obviously in 2024. But that's why people have to go to precinctstrategy.com right now. Sign up. It's totally free. All you need to do is make a commitment of time to go actually be a precinct committeeman. Steve, one more time. What's the phone number? I want to blow. He had 500 last time. I want 5,000 this time. What's the phone number, Steve? Repeat it again. And what's your email?
954-318-6902, Epshteyn1054@AOL.com. Give me a little bit of time to answer, but everyone will be answered. And, great that this is happening. I mean, we have zillions of people trying to sign up. It is going on.
Steve Stern, great. And thank you for taking all day. Like I said, I got to meet the 85-year-old guy, because you're still the most ambitious 80-year-old I know. You're up at all hours of the night. It's incredible. Steve, you're a patriot and a hero. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
When Steve Stern's in your grill, I feel sorry for poor Bongino, Kimberly Guilfoyle. when Stern's on you, right, he's on you. Okay, I want to bring in Boris Epshteyn right now. Boris, you know about those roundtables. You've sat in a gazillion of them. That's when the president really tells you what he's thinking, when he's hearing from the community, he's hearing from community leaders, grassroots leaders, donors. But for him to say, hey, if we had this, they couldn't have stolen it. People should just understand, Trump wants this to happen. It's upon us to make it happen. And you can see out there the establishment 4 days after Trump endorses this. And Boris, you and I have been on this with Dan Schultz for over a year. 4 days after Trump endorsed it and Mike Lindell comes out on top of it, boom, all of a sudden, emergency meeting, emergency legislation. It's the one time that Ducey stayed late on a Friday to sign something, or a Thursday. So, Boris, another big thing, Mo Brooks, there's no conspiracies, but there are no coincidences. Mo Brooks comes out this morning with this guy, this anti-Trump guy, Durant, down in Alabama, who's a never-Trumper, supported by all these groups that are never-Trump groups. Mo Brooks comes out and he takes the pledge today that Eric Greitens was so powerful and such a leader to take months and months ago. Brooks says, hey, if I'm elected, no more Mitch McConnell. He passed that bill the other day. I'm out. I'll vote against him. And a couple of hours later, they're dropping dimes all over Eric Greitens. I know you're very close to Greitens. Tell me about it. Eric Greitens came on the show early at 5 o'clock on full blast. What's the situation with Commander Eric Greitens in Missouri?
Stephen, honored to be here with you today and with the posse. As always, this is definitely a battleground issue for the show War Room Battleground. And you're right. There's no conspiracies, but there's also no coincidences. Eric Greitens has led in the push to make sure that Mitch McConnell is no longer the majority leader after January of 2023, which we do expect for Republicans to take the majority in the Senate so that Mitch McConnell is no longer leader. Today, some really disappointing information dropping, disappointing in a way that this is a clear misuse of a divorce proceeding by swampy political operatives. And more information is going to come out. And let's just be honest with each other. Let's just look at this honestly, right? If these allegations were true, why didn't they come out in the custody battle? Why didn't they come out in the parental agreement? So any American who looks at these and says, well, they have a lot of heft, you got to think about these two people have been separated since 2018, and now it comes out during the heat of a fight between, let's be honest, it's not even for the Senate seats, between MAGA and McConnell world. And so we know about some big names who've been involved in planning this attack on Greitens. And I'm proud of Eric Greitens. And yes, I'm supporting him. And I'm proud of him for not backing down. And let me tell you this, I'm getting a lot of the same feedback. Republicans for American Renewal, Wendy Rogers out there. You get a lot of people in the grassroots in Missouri who are saying, hey, this is a clear attack on a MAGA candidate from the swamp. Because the attack itself doesn't even make any sense. And, as we were thinking today, of where should Commander Greitens go and address this, the War Room with you, Steve Bannon, and vitally with the posse was the absolute only place to come do it, because this is where MAGA goes to be heard. This is where MAGA goes to tell the truth. And, I know personally how amazing devoted and loving of a father Eric Greitens is. I've seen that firsthand. And let me be honest with you, at times I think, hey, let's go make some more fundraising calls. Because, I'm with my kids. So, this is somebody who loves his kids first and foremost. No two ways about it, no doubt about it. And so this attack makes no sense at all in terms of the actual meat of it. And politically, it's a clear-cut political hit piece, much like the hit pieces that came against President Trump in 2016 that you and I fought through. And let's be honest. On those dog days of October 2016, after the tape and then after some of the other nonsense allegations, you could look around that office on Fifth Avenue. Not a lot of people stuck around. It was you, me, a few others, and future President Donald J. Trump.
Even fewer went on TV. This is, I think, when Zucker called me again and said next time Boris showed up in the CNN lobby, he's going to be arrested. I want to go back to what Mo Brooks said today, though. Mo Brooks, when he came out with this spot and said, hey, I'm not voting for Mitch McConnell, he said the Senate primaries are coming down to something very simple and very basic. This is McConnell versus Trump. You've got the MAGA candidates that represent President Trump. You got the rhinos that are Mitch McConnell's. They want to be in his pocket, and particularly his donors' pockets, to do the special deals for the special interests the donors represent. First off, do you believe in that analysis? Do you think it can be that simplified down that these primary races are coming? Because I keep looking for differences in policy, and even the rhinos are kind of hiding behind. They're not saying anything. They're kind of mouthing MAGA policies. This is really coming down to McConnell versus Trump. Do you believe that?
No doubt. It's McConnell versus MAGA. No doubt. No two ways about it. That's exactly what it is. It's about Mitch McConnell trying to shove his own candidates through there and about strong pro-Trump MAGA candidates like Eric Greitens, like Mo Brooks, standing up for it. And hey, let's be honest. We talked about this last week. Katie Britt in that race is interesting. She is. But we still need to learn more information about what relationship there is between Team McConnell and her. I've been hearing conflicting stories. Some are saying, well, there's a lot of closeness. Others are saying that no, that's why McConnell's putting Durant into that race, and they're backing him because they actually don't like Katie Britt, thinks that she's too pro-Trump policies. So it's fascinating to see. But here's what the crazy part is. MAGA right now is about 95, 98% of the Republican Party, okay? Mitch McConnell represents a tiny, useless sliver. And yet, here he is attacking the leading MAGA candidate. Well, whether it's Mitch or his allies or cohorts, whatever it may be. They're attacking in Missouri. They're attacking, using, again, whether it's Lincoln Project or a Lincoln Project offshoot, we're using Lincoln Project-related entities. They're attacking MAGA candidates, and they're promoting a guy, Mike Durant, who said that he wants to have more John McCain's and less Donald Trump's. And John McCain, absolutely, no doubt, a hero for his service in Vietnam. Past that, as we've talked about, an absolute disaster. So Mitch McConnell, all across the country, is trying to push his people forward, but he's failed a lot, already. Look at Arizona. Mitch McConnell tried so hard. He wanted so bad to get Doug Ducey in there. And you know what? Ducey saw what happened when President Trump came to Florence, Arizona, where I was proud to be at the rally. He saw a couple of the hot statements, and Ducey said, "Yeah, not for me, guys. I don't want to get my face smashed in the Senate race." And then today, the poll comes out that Blake Masters, unquestionably the most MAGA candidate in that race, is now leading in the Arizona Senate race. Maryland, same thing. McConnell wanted Larry Hogan to run. He said no. So McConnell's strength is no longer there. And that's why you're seeing really dirty tactics like the one in Arizona and some of the tactics in Alabama. You've seen them as well. In terms of promoting Durant and attacking Mo Brooks and Katie Britt.
Yeah. I just want to say, by the way, for Katie Britt, we're open. We'd love to have Katie Britt on here. I think there is a lot of conflicting information out there, whether she's one of the McConnell stalking horses. We got to learn more. Help the audience think through this. As more hard evidence has come out in the forensic audit in Arizona, where it hangs in the balance about decertification, in Judge Gableman's analysis and investigation in Wisconsin, where Robin Voss is kind of saying, yeah, there's massive fraud here, but I don't have a mechanism to decertify. Okay. In Pennsylvania, where the appeals court in the Commonwealth said the 2.6 million ballots are unconstitutional of the 6 million.
Yes,
and
sir.
in Georgia, where we know the festering sores in Georgia, as more hard information has come out that proves and shows factually, which the Democrats never want to talk about and always make you force them. Shapiro, forces you to go to court to get any type of information. As more information comes out that the election was clearly stolen, Biden's illegitimate, and not just hedge fund managers from the city of London to New York talk about it all the time, but more importantly, our enemies don't treat him with any respect. And part of that respect, part of the reason they don't treat him with respect, they understand he's illegitimate and doesn't really have the backing of at least 50% of the country. Why is it Mitch McConnell is more and more brazen and disrespectful to President Trump personally and as a political leader and a leader of a movement that at its worst got 75 million votes and probably got 80 or more million votes or not more than any other incumbent president and any Republican in history? What is it, Boris? The more evidence that comes out, the lack of respect. And I think this is what gets people that are close to President Trump and MAGA gets all over him. The level of disrespect is stunning. Boris Epshteyn.
It's a show of weakness, Steve. It's the flailings of a political operative, a political official who knows that their time is done and who knows they've lost the base, who knows that they've lost the heart of the Republican Party. And that's what's happening. That's why you're seeing such blatant disrespect and attacks from McConnell and his people on MAGA and, frankly, on President Trump himself. They know that their time is over, that MAGA is in control. And this is why you're seeing such blatant, as you said, brazen disrespect, because it's coming from a position of weakness. Remember, Mitch McConnell is somebody who used to really not get in the mud, right? He was so powerful, he didn't really have to. He walked around, he was the king of the Senate, he loved being called leader, and everything was hunky-dory for him. But as soon as he made the terrible mistake of trying to stab President Trump in the back after January 6th, stab MAGA in the back after January 6th, Mitch McConnell's clout, his standing, his position have been plummeting like a fallen knife. That's what's been happening. And because of that, you have somebody who knows that their political time is winding down, and that's why you have some of these, again, brazen, blatant moves and blatant disrespect toward MAGA, because that's all they can do. There's no more leverage. There's no more strength. It's just, hey, let's shove some money out there and put some rhino candidates up. But the American people completely see through that. That's why for a lot of leaders, they'll be polling at X in a particular state. And then once people find out they're against Mitch McConnell, like Greitens, it's X plus 10 or 20. And I think the same thing's going to happen to Mo Brooks in Alabama after this major announcement today in his interview right here on War Room. I think it's very important for Mo in that race. And let's be honest with what happened there. Mo Brooks was running away with that race. It was over. And then for some reason, whoever advised him, he went on that stage and said, well, you got to move on past 2020. And you know what the crowd said? They said, wrong.
Right.
They said,
boot him off the stage. It was terrible.
63,000 of us are going to boo you off the stage now, little guy, okay? So that was real bad.
Hang on. Let me get to a couple other things I got to get to. We have Ohio, Arizona, Missouri, Pennsylvania, Nevada, New Hampshire, maybe Vermont, right? The only race that's not really intense is Herschel Walker and in Georgia. The rest of them are all dogfights. We're going to be covering them all the wall.
Better believe
but I got to go to this
in the general.
That's what I'm saying, primary. These are, that's going to be super intense in the general. But I'm saying right now, the primary, you've got these primary fights that are all over. We're going to be covering them in detail.
Some places like
I've got
Ohio,
to go to the political
fights.
story. I know. They're going to see in a few minutes at 7:00. We had Mandela Day. I want to go. I don't have time to go to the Ohio of it because I got to get your assessment of this major Politico article today, and we're giving you signal, not noise. This is where Politico did a great job of going to Democrats, and they said, hey, the entire Senate's going to hang on Nevada and Arizona, and it's on the Hispanic vote to back two incumbents. And as Cortez can walk you through the number, it's just not there. Do you agree with Politico's analysis coming from Democrat operatives that the Senate's going to hang in the balance, and where it's going to hang is in Nevada and in Arizona, but they have to have a massive turnout of Hispanics? Because I think we're going to get 50-50 Hispanic vote. Boris Epshteyn.
I agree completely. I mean, in Nevada, I think Laxalt's a very strong candidate, had been elected attorney general of the state, and the sitting senator is very weak. She's very weak. So he's got a great shot there. And in Arizona, again, I hope that I'm supporting Blake Masters. I hope it's him against Mark Kelly. Mark Kelly's, again, been sort of a disappearing senator. He's trying to kind of hide behind, being an astronaut. But now, dude, you've been a senator for a couple of years. What have you done for the people of the Grand Canyon State? And the answer is absolutely nothing. So very important there. And yes, the Hispanic voters, as we have seen in the voting in Texas, down in the Rio Grande, as we've seen all across the country, the working class, middle class Hispanics are coming over to MAGA in droves, and they're leaving the Democrat Party. Because let's be honest. Do you think that the Hispanic population in this country likes what's going on with Leah Thomas and the UPenn swimming team? Do you think they like what's going on with a push for universal abortion? The social issues, social justice, they don't like any of that. Any of that. There's no time. CRT. The Hispanic, the working class Hispanic population is squarely aligned with MAGA and its values. And then you've got the border.
Yeah, right. Border, and you got, by the way, the border plays for us. They want border security. You also got energy out of control, food out of control, and now you're going to add credit cards because it's going to start bouncing interest rates. Real quickly, Boris, you got a minute. Give me your social media. How do people get to you in your morning newsletter?
Steve, I got to say, this show is pure fire. I love coming on here. The heat on Battlegrounds is so important, and I'm getting a ton of feedback from all across the country. Every candidate wants to be on here. So the website is boriscp.com. Sign up right now, boriscp.com. Coming in hot. We're going to do a newsletter tomorrow morning. At BorisCP on Getter, coming in hot on Getter, at BorisCP. Twitter, at BorisCP. Truth Social, at Boris. And, of course, the hottest on the gram, Boris_Epshteyn. Stay strong. God bless. All eyes on Battlegrounds. I'll see you tomorrow.
Okay, there's going to be explosive information tomorrow. The story's going to break about Eric Greitens. We're going to be covering it wall to wall. Also, you have day 2 of the confirmation hearing. We've got a lot on economics and, of course, the war in Ukraine. We'll see you tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock. War and pandemic. Be there and be strapped in. See you tomorrow morning at 10.